Well, hello, everybody, and hello, Chad. How was your week this week, Chad?
It was a momentous week in the Fry household this week.
Good.
So
I'm hoping that's that you could take that either way. You could say either that's a good thing or a bad thing.
My youngest son realized one of his dreams and goals this week. So
Very cool.
Congratulations, Naaman. Because it's kind of cool. He was pretty excited on Saturday when I stopped at a Wichita retailer to pick up a Nintendo Switch.
Nice. Yeah.
So, he's been saving his money for a long time. And he still owes me a little bit of money. He's going to take care of some of that this weekend when he mows Grandma and Grandpa's yard.
Very good.
And in another probably 3, maybe 4 mowings, he'll probably be just about square with me. So,
well, that's nice. Kids, jobs, and having buying power on things that they want is a revolutionary thing for kids.
Well, it's the thing is that I've tried to do is I've been trying to teach my kids that if you want something, you gotta work for it. And sometimes you got to save up for it. So, my daughter spent 2 years, and this is before she was old enough to rub 2 nickels together, to be honest, saving every penny and every dime and anything that she came across. So, Mom would slip $5 into a birthday card. Grandpa would slip 15 into a birthday card. All that would get saved. And she saved for a couple years, and she ended up buying an American Girl doll. And it was the girl of the year for that year, cool. Kira.
Yeah, cool.
We'll see how much people geek out or whatever.
Yeah.
But I was really, really proud of her for doing that. And she demonstrated some of the same personality traits as my sisters, not necessarily myself, because I try, I really do, but sometimes it's just not possible to get it pushed away, Yeah. And then my oldest son decided he wanted a PS5, and he was dropping all those hints. It's like,
yeah,
Dad, that Xbox 360 ain't gonna cut it for much longer.
Yeah.
Dad, that Xbox. Well, if you want something else, then you just go get it.
Yeah. Yeah,
I mean,
and it's comforting. It is a rite of passage for especially your boy, right? To be able to be of the age, the capacity, have the responsibility to go out and be able to work for somebody else.
Yeah,
because that is that's that whole psychology of me and society, right? So it's not just you're buying it for them or. You can work it off for me, type of a thing here, just you're doing all these things around them because that's still coming out of your pocket, right? Obviously, but the ability for them to go out and be able to work for somebody else, then there's more accountability there, and they can, they're going to have to either do a good job or there's going to be so many opportunities for them to learn how to do a good job, take correction, work, have responsibility for it.
Yeah, I just got the worst case scenario estimate on one of our vehicles from a local mechanic.
Oh, nice.
And I was kind of wishing I could, convince my son to go do, maybe 200, 300, 400 oil changes for the guy and work all that off.
Right.
But that ain't gonna happen.
We can't do that anymore. We used to be able to do that, Chad.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way. I got to come up with
Children are equal labor. So what can we work out?
Maybe I need to get a Venmo account so people can donate to the cause.
Right?
Oh
yeah, go on Facebook and say something about it.
So it's just right here,
you
man.
Never know.
Donate to the cause.
Donate, Chad. Right now, Chad Fry, the Kansan guy, who is a wonderful personality on this program, is seeking some assistance, and look up his Venmo account.
I don't have one, so
do you got Cash App?
No.
You need to do a Cash App.
No, I got Cash App. I do have Cash App.
Then that means that I'm pretty sure about everybody that's in your contacts. If they just look up Chad Fry, I'm sure that it'll come up.
Yeah,
and you can just donate to the cause.
Interesting story. I used Cash App to fetter out and I ended up losing a little money on the deal. But I used a Cash App to fetter out a scammer on YouTube. And unfortunately, all those people were in the far-flung places of the universe that we're not going to be able to
ever recoup.
And we're not talking about, we're not talking about thousands of dollars here. We're talking about tens and, not much. But when they started in, they were trying to scam my son. And I was pretty sure it was a scam. And so I went ahead and downloaded Cash App, and I put just a little bit in there.
Tested the waters.
And, kind of kept going. I let them go and go and go. And then it got to the point where, they said they needed X amount for shipping and handling on something. And I'm like, nah, I think we can barter this down if you're.
Yeah, I need to pay you shipping and handling for me.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was just. But anyway, I rooted them out. I figured out what they were doing and how they were doing it. And I notified the people who needed to know, right? Yeah. Because they found my son on YouTube. That's where they found him. And it wasn't the YouTuber that he was watching that was doing this. It was somebody else.
Yeah, somebody in the comments section.
So, I just kind of let the YouTuber know, this is what's going on with your channel.
Yep.
These are the people that I've found. I'm not out enough that anybody's ever going to do anything about it, other than maybe you starting to police your comment section.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and that's next to unheard of. I mean, I am an administrator on numerous groups. I try to do my best. It's not a matter of vetting people per se for the content they want to put on there, but really to try to protect people from being scammed.
Well, and what they did is almost ingenious, right? So the guy with the channel talked about his contest that he was going to run, right? And lo and behold, scammers jumped on that, and they started hitting everybody in the comments section with, hey, you've won this contest.
Oh, yeah. And of course, I won the contest.
So,
And see, and you're a critical thinker. So you just walk through the process of, somebody was trying to get at your kid, right? Who's just not necessarily as aware. People try to target elderly people as well, who maybe don't understand.
They'll target anybody that they think they can get some money from.
Yeah. And then, you can even just clicking on a link can cause problems for you.
And they didn't know the first thing about me or who I am or what I do or any of it. And, it was within probably 2 messages, I was like, this is a scam. There's nothing to this. This is a scam. If I send him anything, it's gone forever.
Yeah.
I mean, I just knew. I knew. Right? And so stupid me went ahead and sent them a little bit just because I was just trying to play this thing out. And
that almost sounds like a news article, Chad.
It was long ago.
Well, I know, but I'm saying as far as just in reference to, I couldn't tell you. I could not tell you the amount of messages every day that I get and commenting on like Harvey County Talk even, or any other page that I administrator on is copyright infringement, or click on this link because otherwise we're going to take your stuff down.
We're going to delete your account.
You need to go to Meta AIB, and then you go over and you're like, okay, I want to block this person.
And don't feel bad. I mean, it makes the rounds everywhere.
Yeah.
Right?
No. Yeah, and then you go look them up.
It's like I've sent a number of emails out to editors of other publications in our chain. Hey, by the way, if you get this, just ignore it.
Well, it's even almost
and they're like, "What do you mean, just ignore it?" I'm like, "Seriously, just ignore it.
Yeah,
don't read it,
delete it. Don't click on the link. Nothing. Don't do any of that stuff.
Don't bother with it. It's a scam, and it doesn't warrant any of your time other than you just kind of going, "Okay, I'm just not going to pay attention to this. I'll go on and get my job done."
Meta support, AI meta support. I tell you, Facebook's the worst. Literally, I did this. I just, we're talking about testing things out and stuff, and I saw a couple AI metas come up, and I thought, I have to block those. I blocked them, so that way if some unsuspecting person watching the program will click on it, and then it'll do whatever it does, in the world of AI that we have. And so I went over and I searched the name, and I realized, well, there's like endless endless amounts of this. Like, there is no way that you could just go through and delete. And they set it up so that way you can't. They're just going to keep coming. There's nothing you can do about it. You have to keep doing the same thing, doing the same thing, doing the same thing. And I was thinking the other day, if Facebook's listening, which probably they're not, but let's say Meta, you know what you should do in the world of Lance's brain is, we could really do away with a lot of problems that are on social media if there was just a identity check. Right? So when you want to get on Facebook and you're saying that this is your name and you're saying you're a certain age or you're saying you're with a certain company or whatever the case may be, all right, that they should just have you like take a picture of your ID. If you want to sponsor any advertisements for any political thing or sponsor anything at all, I do believe, then Meta has to verify you. So what that is I couldn't tell you how many times I've had to produce my ID to get fact checked, if you want to call it that, to be able to make sure that I am the guy who I say I am and I live where I live and I am the age that I am and I'm of the business that I am of. And sometimes it really goes through some hoops. Like, you got to jump through some hoops. And then it'll reject a picture out and you got to do it again. And I mean, you got to go through some rigmarole, right, to be able to get where you need to get. But there's no question whatsoever about whether I'm Lance Gormley. Lance Gormley is a real person. This is this person's age. This is this person's address. Instead of it being, well, whatever I want it to be. Because right now you can just go create any kind of a profile you want. In fact, I've got a post on my Facebook that says at one point in time, Facebook used to try to get people to report false profiles or fake profiles. And instead now, and I don't know why, but they've decided to encourage people that already have a profile to make another profile.
What's the point of a second?
Well, because then you can say that you're somebody that you're not.
Well, true.
And then you can go out there and you can spread hate and discontent.
I say that, but I have a profile and then I have a page. So
page and profile. I mean, but same rules apply. If you are creating a page, you can't create a page without having a profile.
Right.
So if you take and you say, hey, here's my profile, then that then leads into, okay, we know who's administrating on the page. I mean, it's that simple. You can make a page that says we're flat earthers or flat earth society or whatever you want, but it still comes back to your profile, which in that case, if they would listen to Lance, right?
Hey, it's still better than the days of those old internet message boards where everybody was anonymous.
Yeah. I'm K4610095.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember those days, and there were some brutal days on those.
Yeah. Yeah. So. Well, and it hasn't changed. I mean, you think about like Meta and Facebook bolstering their content creators and all of this stuff. I mean, if Lance has 5 profiles, well, then they can take it into the book that there's 5 users there, even though there's not 5 users, there's just 1. And I think when Twitter went to X, if that's correct, that was one of the bargaining problems that they had, was that, I'm potentially buying bot accounts or fake accounts or whatever the case may be.
Right.
And so then it really sized them down quite a bit. And then they went to the
verification
thing and all that.
You bring up Twitter/X, I think it was last week Elon did a survey if he should change the name back to Twitter.
I'm hoping that they do. I mean, rebranding is really hard.
Users were very, very lopsided in their voting.
Really? Well, if I was to vote on that, which I don't do Twitter or X, I'm sure somewhere in the line of things we have a Harvey County Talk on whichever platform you want to call it. Rebranding something like that's really difficult. I mean, and then there's the common sense of the thing.
Who wants to sit there and say, I just wrote an X?
Yeah. I
just published a tweet. I just published an X.
Goes back to branding. Yeah. Twitter, tweeting. I mean, it makes sense. It's
just saying.
It's branding, but I suppose
I don't control the world, though.
And I don't have billions of dollars. So maybe those marketing professionals know more than me. But usually, when you go buy let's say you want to buy a franchise and you buy Burger King. Okay, let's just say you buy the majority share of Burger King. Okay, Who in their right mind would tell that person, change that name to Burger Queen?
Well, Burger Queens do exist.
I know, come on. I know it's like Dairy Queen and Dairy King. There are some of those, but I'm trying to find like a relative, thing of where you're like, okay, let's
like
rebrand. That was closer
like
than
New
going
Way
from,
and Made Right.
Yeah. So it's like, well, you
and
asked
by the way, it's a Made Right.
It's a Made Right. Is that
it'll
what
always
New Way?
be a Made Right.
Okay. So
it'll all due respects to the dudes down in Wichita, it'll always be a Made Right.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, so you're telling me that New Way used to be called Made Right.
There was some kind of split there.
Okay.
Owners didn't get along apparently. And one, no one really knows who gave birth to the other.
Nobody wanted to go down without a fight.
They love to say that, New Way loves to say they serve the same sandwich. They don't.
Okay.
And yeah.
So there's more than one crumbly is good.
Yes.
I didn't know that.
It's called a loose meat sandwich, Lance. Loose meat sandwich.
Okay.
Take it from the Iowegian.
I'm going to say, just to be totally honest, not a fan. In my mind's eye, when I think about biting into a nice juicy burger, it's not crumbly, I'm not into ground hamburger burgers. Is that what that is? They call it loose meat, but are there other loose meat?
Generally speaking,
do you put ham through a blender and then serve it up?
No.
That's
ground
called
beef,
a ham salad.
Ground beef that is boiled, seasoned, and then cooked again. And yeah.
That just makes it sound even less appetizing than what it was before. Just my opinion.
You know what?
No offense to the New
While we're
Ways,
chit-chatting about that kind of stuff, right?
I don't know.
So this last weekend, we went on another one of our sunflower summer adventures last weekend.
Nice.
Yeah. And when we were done, we went back to Jimmy's Diner in Wichita. That's where we decided to eat.
I like Jimmy's Diner.
And little known factoid is that Jimmy's, and I don't believe it was at the location it is now, but Jimmy's was the precursor to White Castle.
Okay.
So, we had a family friend that was dining with us, and I'm like, I want the blue plate special with an extra burger. And then it comes out, she's like, oh, those are cute. Those are just those little burgers. They're like, what, sliders? I'm like, this is the original. Yeah. Right? This is you go back, 80 years or whatever it is. This is how White Castle started right here. This blue plate special.
They went in there and they had a blue plate special, and they're like, you know what? We ought to make a whole franchise out of just the blue plate special.
So, that's another one of those reasons that it's been kind of a great week,
Yeah. Did you tell me, did you tell me where you went? You didn't tell me where you went. Where'd you go?
We went back to our very first Sunflower Summer app trip from last year or the year before or whatever year it was. We went to Botanica.
Nice. Well, I remember
had our family pictures done at Botanica.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I remember you talking about that not too long ago.
And the cool part of that is, Botanica, they could be real jerks if they wanted to, but they're not. They're just like, as long as your photographer buys a ticket, have at it, enjoy. And just make sure you're not disruptive for everybody else.
That works.
All right.
I could do that. So you could even go like at different times when there's different seasons, take a photographer in there.
You bet.
Even for us, do it yourselfers.
So,
you could go set up a tripod, put a timer on it, do the whole thing.
The photographer that our family has used for the last, I don't know how many years, actually has a membership to Botanica for that very reason. We didn't know that until we asked if they'd be willing to go down to Wichita with us. And the response was yes.
I go in there all the time.
Yeah, she's like, I go all the time.
Yeah, because I would think that would be, it's like the zoo. Love the zoo. I'm a zoo man. I'm a zoo fan, type of thing. But there's always people taking pictures, and this probably has a lot to do with what you can find there that you can't readily get, photos of otherwise, right?
Right.
So I suppose Botanical's the same way.
Yep.
There's going to be a lot of stuff there that you otherwise wouldn't be able to take pictures of. And so I figured it'd probably be a photographer's dream, really.
My son wanted his picture taken with pretty much every single one of the life-size or larger Lego animal sculptures.
Okay.
So these things had 40,000 pieces in them.
Is that like a theme right now? Is that what it is?
Well, they always have some kind of special thing going on, and that's what it is right now.
Very cool.
So I thought the coolest one I thought was the wolf/coyote. I didn't get close enough to read the labelings on that one, but the wolf/coyote that was charging up the hill at a dozen bunny rabbits or so, and those bunny rabbits were huge. They're not, if they'd have put horns on them, they'd have been jackalopes. But yeah,
interesting.
Yeah, it's cool. Cool.
Might have to download the Sunflower app and take the kids.
And time is ticking, man. Time is ticking.
Yeah,
because it's not good. It's only good for another, I don't know, month and a half or so. I mean,
okay. Now,
so time is ticking.
Do you think they're gonna re-up that, or
no? It'll every year there's a cutoff.
Okay.
At the end of the summer, there's a cutoff, and you're done until the next year.
That's right. It's just for the summertime.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Very cool. Very cool.
It is the Sunflower Summer
app. Okay. Yeah. So, we gotta read between the lines, Lance. Boy, went right over my head today. Yeah. What was it? Just kind of taking it back to the idea that. We were talking about Facebook and believing and things that we see, and just there's. I'm not going to call it misinformation, but what I will say is that I wonder how many people look at all these different things with critical thinking skills. I've got to give a shout out to. I watched a clip from Cake News of all places. Just send Cake News a shout out, right? But it was talking about during political season that it's very important to check sources, to make sure that you use critical thinking skills, that just because you see it come across your screen doesn't make it true, and do a little bit of investigating. And I take it back to, well, I do that all the time. So I mean, are we talking to a large portion of the population, and no offense, people, but that are just kind of lazy? Is it laziness? Is it naivety? What is it, Chad?
I don't know. I just here's what I'm gonna throw on that one. Don't believe memes.
Yeah.
Seriously, don't. There's a reason they were created. There's a motivation for the creation, and I didn't wade into this one like I probably should have, but I was very frustrated with a childhood friend who posted something just yesterday, day before, saying, you can't believe the news media because all of it's all owned by just 6 companies. They're going to give you what it is. Okay.
Okay. I'm already know where you're going with this.
Dude, there's like 25 multi-newspaper paper companies. 25 companies, ownership groups of newspapers.
Yeah.
I haven't even dived in to see how many different ownership groups there are for television or radio. And if we want to throw online in there as well, online news sources as well.
Wow.
I mean, trust me, the meme is so wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so wrong. It's laughable.
Yeah. Well, but I understand the direction
and why
going.
People. Well, but why would you believe that over? Well, let's just call it for what it is. Why would you believe that over me?
That is, I was going to lead into that.
I'm just saying. I'm pointing right at it, going, "That's wrong."
Yeah.
And chances are, the creator knew it was wrong, but they did it anyway because they're serving their own motivation, whatever that is.
Yeah. Well, let's say
and
that
there
they
is
didn't know.
Way too much of that going on. Just way, way, way too much going on.
Yeah. Well, people, it's like trusted sources. I can remember a while back, especially on where we'll talk about the major national news networks, okay, that the word trusted, they kept bringing the word trust or the most trusted, and that's marketing, so it's like,
well, and straight up, I don't trust any of them.
And it's because
especially after 6 o'clock.
Well, and you even have to take it back to this. the reason they can get away with so much that they get away with is in the way of very political or very one-sided or not completely and totally accurate is because they're classified as entertainment, not news.
Yes, but there's also another part of that. There used to be a fairness doctrine that, who did away with that?
Shoot, Chad, shoot.
Ronald Reagan.
But they did it under the guise, and I remember this, that there was not enough conservative viewpoints,
no,
right? Didn't that have to do with like Rush Limbaugh and all that stuff?
He just did away with the fairness doctrine. Okay, and
uh-oh, Chad's getting fire under his belly. I can see it.
I mean, journalists are always supposed to have two sources.
Yeah.
Always. Okay? That doesn't play out well for a city commission meeting or a school board meeting. It just doesn't. All right? But at the end of the day, if I'm going to do an investigative report, which I've done this, if I'm going to do an investigative report and I'm going to be looking into the background of, let's say, 2 sheriff's deputies, knowing full well that what I write could get them fired, I better have more than one source on the line.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
I can't take just one person's word for it. Right?
Yeah.
And it's that right there. That's why we did have a couple of sheriff's deputies fired. It's why there was never anything written about the Newton Police Department.
Yeah.
It's not that they weren't investigated. They were. It's not that I didn't spend months and months and months and months going, okay, there's got to be some smoke here. There's got to be some fire under this smoke. And going to City Hall and going, I don't want to see the individual records because those are personnel records. I want to know how many reports have been filed. Over and over and over and over again. And as I'm rooting in, I'm like, okay, so this is starting to trace back to one person and one person's sense of humor. And so, now you're asking questions of people who have recently quit the department. You always got to have multiple sources.
Yeah.
It goes to the trust but verify.
Yeah.
Got to go verify this. Got to verify it.
Yeah, and I wouldn't necessarily that's always true.
And that is journalistic principle. Now, bottom line, after 6 o'clock, you don't get any journalistic principle on the major cable networks. Well, you don't.
And I would almost say that in this digital age, when access to everything is everywhere, that you're not always. It's like that's why I'm a fan of the paper, Chad. I'm a fan of the written word, the paper.
Here's the thing here's the disservice that all of these news networks are doing. Okay? When you tune into, pick one. Rachel Maddow.
MSNBC.
Sure. You tune into Sean Hannity.
Fox News.
Okay.
I know all of them.
Anderson. Anderson Cooper. CNN. Yeah, you tune into any of those. Tune into any of the pundits.
The pundits. That is a good word for it.
That's what they are. They are opinions. And right now I'm an opinion dude.
Yeah.
So that's what they are, and that's what they're doing. But their presentation, boy, doesn't it look a lot like Walter Cronkite?
Well, yes. Yes. That's like that. It just goes, yes.
And they don't do anything to discourage people from thinking that looks like a news program.
Yeah. Well, and it's a one-way street too, because like, for instance, something that I really like about this program with you and I is that we don't always agree.
Right.
You know, and you have no problem saying, well, I'm not sure I would look at it this way. Here's the other side of this. Or for me to push back and say, well, I see it this way. And there's a lot of things we agree on. I mean, we don't get into knock it down, drag out fights on this program by any stretch of imagination, but there's two different perspectives here. We don't think necessarily like Chad. I mean,
well, you're right. I mean, for example, we agree that when voting starts next week, people should vote.
Absolutely, 100%.
We may not agree with who they should be voting for.
True. And even between you and I know that sometimes we've had personal conversations in reference to that. And you know, it's an interesting thing in a world in which politics seems to be so full of angry, disenfranchised individuals. And I've said it over and over and over again. The breakdown in our government started when people do not want to elect someone to represent everyone and do what's right for the whole. They want to elect someone that will push their will and their bidding onto everyone else. And we just keep going around in this circle and around in this circle. And it's like, when you ask somebody, are you wanting to vote for that person because you think that they're a credible person, that they are educated in what they're going to do, and do you think that they'll look at it from the perspective of what's best for the whole? No. The minute that we start talking about maybe somebody making a decision that's good for somebody or will be in line with something that I don't agree with, then that person is checked off. Not checked on.
And it feels like everybody's looking to be a victim.
Oh, yes. I'm telling you
I'm being persecuted because I'm a liberal.
Yeah.
I'm being persecuted because I'm a conservative.
Well, that's how you divide
Let me tell you, you know, I spent decades as an independent. I spent decades as being in the middle.
Yeah.
And both sides were always angry.
Yes.
And both sides were always playing the victim card.
Mm-hmm. And running farther and farther away from each other.
Both of them.
Yep. Yeah, and I was going to say, to be a victim,
it drove me nuts. It drives me nuts.
Yeah.
Take your blinders off. Get rid of your tunnel vision.
Well, and I would say this, and could get into some trouble for saying this, but I always seem to speak my mind, and whether I get in trouble for it or not, okay, you know, or whatever the case may be, because obviously you can't please everybody. But when you said you used to be an independent, what I know about the political partisan system, and of course I am a registered Republican, right? It's not the Republicans and the Democrats that are victims. If you want to look at who's a victim, I would say people who are unaffiliated 9 times out of 10 are the victims, because they're the ones that say, I don't agree with this so much.
Right.
I don't agree with this so much. So then what happens? Well, they've got laws set up to say, well, for you to vote for one or the other, then you have to be aligned with one political party or the other.
And when is the last time that a third-party candidate, any third-party candidate, has been given anything other than just he's there? No, because the fight is on already. I mean, you're like, trying to get in there and be the referee into a fight, and that's not that. People don't want the referee. Yeah.
Yeah. There's no badge of honor.
You walk into as an independent, you know.
Yeah.
I walked into a lot of voting booths with no one to vote for.
Yeah. Well, if you're a Republican and somebody's independent, then immediately they're going to say that person doesn't think like me, or they'd be a Republican. Well, and if you're a Democrat, then you're thinking the same thing. You're thinking they're an independent. They're probably more. And it's very easy for the two parties to be able to see it. And you know, I understand party politics, okay? I'm not anti-party politics here. Obviously, I picked one. So that is what it is. And no hatred towards anybody that picks the other, that feels like their viewpoints and whatnot align more with this side or that side. But, you know, I've said it over and over and over again. The farther that, on a national level, the farther that Republicans run away from Democrats and Democrats run away from Republicans, it's us in the middle which are just the everyday individual that's trying to make ends meet, that wants to have a good job. I truly believe this, that get squinched. We're
left behind.
And you know, and I've said this oftentimes, and I truly believe this at the core. The majority of what people really want is to be able to have a roof over their head, food in their stomach, a family that's healthy, that is secure and safe. They want to be able to watch their kids grow up. They want to be able to have grandkids, let's say. I mean, I'm not saying
they want to buy a new car.
They want to be able to.
They want to buy a new to them car about every 5 years.
Yeah, you know, the basic things. You know, I want to raise at my job occasionally.
And
you know,
right now, everything, all of that is just jacked.
Yes.
It's just jacked.
But you know something, in my study.
And we didn't get there overnight.
I'll tell you this. In my study, my education, okay, this is when we're in the danger zone. And it's true. It's how free countries lead way into dictatorships. And there are key factors in which this takes place. And one is the economy, whether I can get a job that sustains me and is able to pay for my everyday bills, which is your food, your water, your gas, your house. Simple things. And what happens is, as the economy begins to crash and it becomes more and more and more difficult, that is usually synonymous with people wanting for there to be strong government intervention. Because for some reason, when things get bad in today's society, they don't want for there to be less government to be able to allow them to be freer, to be able to do something, because there's no hope there.
They want to be led out of the situation.
That's correct. So now what we see happening, especially with the presidential race, comes down to competency, right? It's whether or not you think somebody's going to be able to improve your life condition better than the other, right? My life is in a difficult situation. Every time I go to the grocery store, it costs more money. Okay, all this type of stuff. And you and I both know, because we've covered it before, and I know I'm getting long-winded here, but that Congress is the one that makes these laws.
Correct. Go back and read Thomas Knapp on Saturday. You know, I chose him as to be a regular columnist with a purpose. Okay, he comes from a libertarian think tank.
Oh no.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and
I love it. I love it.
It's simple numbers, man.
Yes.
We have thousands of Republicans in our county.
I think we have like 300 libertarians, maybe.
Bingo. We have thousands of Democrats, and we have like 300 libertarians.
Yeah.
And I know a couple of them, and they're cool people.
Yeah.
But you know, I wanted. When I made the conscious decision to use him on a regular basis, it was because he is a different voice.
Yeah.
And he does not represent one of the two major political tribes that we have in our country today.
Yeah.
And political tribalism is creating massive problems for us.
Well, and self-consumption too, Chad, because I have started to see it turn even farther in, like, more, I'm going to say extreme, okay? Lightly use the word extreme. And what I see is, and have experienced in my own life, is that you have a group of Democrats, right? You have a group of Republicans. Those are the two big ones. But then inside of that, you have self-consumption, right? There are many, many, many Republicans and many, many, many Democrats who think, oh my word, can I call myself a Democrat? Can I, with what some of the stuff that the Democrat Party's doing, can I really honestly I don't agree with that, but look at the Republican Party. Look at what they're doing. Like I can't agree with that either, but because of the way things are, what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do? I couldn't tell you how many doorsteps I've talked to people about that.
Just consider yourself whatever you want to consider yourself. Identify the way you want to identify. And by the way, understand you're screwed.
Yeah, well, and so I was going to say, it doesn't work that way because
seriously.
of primaries. What generally happens is a very small percentage of the overall whole of the party get out to vote in a primary.
Correct.
And if I could tell people how important primaries actually are, they usually, in a community where there is a larger majority of one party or the other, dictates what candidate you're going to get to be able to win in a general and then service.
Well, you know,
if you want to call it service anymore.
I wrote an editorial a few years back that really, really angered the Democratic Party of Harvey County. I called them a bunch of failures, and they were. And it was because I had gotten to that point where I was so tired of walking in on election day. Because of my registration, that was my first opportunity to be a part of the process of electing a Harvey County commissioner.
And you got nobody.
And there was nobody on the ballot.
Yeah.
Now, that's not an indictment of the commissioners that have represented my district over the last several years.
Not pointing any fingers.
It's just not. I mean,
but think of the
period.
dichotomy here. Here's the issue,
problem.
Chad.
The problem is that I didn't have a choice.
But even then, take it a step further. What's happening is we already have a small demographic of people that actually get out to vote anyway. I think we're talking like, 30%, 40% of registered eligible voter turnout.
Oh, it's not even that high, dude.
Okay, but then that doesn't take into consideration. That's only counting those who are registered to vote, which is a fraction. So we're getting a fraction of people that are registered to vote, then a fraction of these people, and then if, let's say, I'm just not to stay away. I don't want to point any fingers at the Republican Party or anything. Let's say we're in a populace that the majority is Democrat. Okay, then if only 25% or 20% get out and vote in a primary, then what happens? 20% of the people are eligible registered voters, so it's even smaller of a percentage. Maybe 10% of your population is choosing who is going to be your representative in whatever like and fashion. So we're talking about like a true breakdown. And this is why I try to tell people over and over and over again, you think voting don't matter, it's the lack of voting that matters the most.
Let me ask you something. If voting doesn't matter, if it truly doesn't matter, then why is it they're always trying to reduce the number of people coming to the polls?
I have no argument made towards that because what happens is that's normally guys.
So there's a bill.
Things.
There's a bill out there, and this is I tangled with a couple of really hard conservatives over the last few days on this one because I can't stand the way people twist everything out to make it sound the way they want.
Yes, they hear something through their own filter.
So there's a bill. There's a bill that one party is very adamantly opposed to, and this is in Washington. And all we hear from the other party is, see, you don't want people to have ID. No, that's not it. We don't think that they should be required to have a passport to vote. Less than 50% of eligible Americans have a passport.
I don't have a passport. I've never needed to leave the country.
Okay? This reeks of a poll tax. It's $165 to get a passport.
Not going to do it.
Okay?
Yeah.
And, dude, if you guys are going to do this, then point blank, you better be doing this with enough advance notice that people can get their passports. Because if the passport office gets absolutely flooded, now what?
Yeah.
I mean, come on, dudes.
Yeah.
Don't tell me the voting doesn't matter. We have too much evidence to the contrary. And the evidence to the contrary is how voting is continually legislated in ways to try and reduce it.
Well, I'll tell you, I am not against an individual needing to have identification to say when they show up to a poll that they are who they are.
You bet.
Some form of government ID, okay? The issue that we get into is because then the other side, who thinks, or whichever side, right, that everybody should be able to vote if they are currently on U.S. soil.
Well, the question is it a constitutional right?
License.
Is it a right
to vote?
To vote.
Unless you lose your right to vote, yes, through whatever means.
So what are we doing limiting it?
Well, Chad, they call it regulating. Not
No, it's limiting.
Regulating.
Make no mistake, it's limiting. You want to talk about cheating in an election? Figure out a way that your opponent can't vote. Just figure out a way they can't.
So where's the line? So this is one of those things I was talking about where Chad and I don't necessarily agree on anything, on everything, but where's the line come into effect of if I'm here and I'm not a U.S. citizen and I do not have, quote unquote, as a U.S. Citizen, the protections of the Constitution, because that's what those are about, right? You only have constitutional protections if you are a U.S. citizen because it's the U.S. Constitution, right?
Well, see, but it slices the other way. Here's where it slices the other way. What they're talking about, the bill they're talking about, Lance, your driver's license won't work.
I know, and I'm with you on that. I don't agree with that.
If you're a veteran or active military, your military IDs won't work. Think about that.
You know what we need to do then?
Who has if you want to talk about earning it?
Yeah.
Who's done the most to earn it?
Oh, the military, obviously.
They put their freaking lives on the line.
Yeah.
They earned it.
Agreed.
And then you're going to have the chutzpah to look at them and say, no, your ID's not going to work. You got to prove you're a citizen. Maybe you should go get a passport. Oh, you can't afford a passport? Sorry.
Or your birth certificate. And even then you get into question about, well,
birth certificate has no photo on it.
Yeah, right. I mean, you just, but see, it's okay. But then you go back to the state of Kansas, under Chris Kobach, if I do believe correct, wanted for there to be voter ID or voter verification through ID. You can't get a driver's license in the state of Kansas.
Don't even get me started on Chris Kobach.
I love it. But you catch what I'm saying. I mean, at heart, it's probably right, Chad, don't you think?
You've heard the phrase, the truth is stranger than fiction. And it really, truly is. And for Chris Kobach, he lived that. There's no two ways around it. That man had the audacity to stand down in Wichita and say, this person that voted in the last election, there's no way they can, because they would have to be 108 years old based on their registration. And there's no way that they're alive, and there's no way that they could have voted. It took 24 hours for the Wichita Eagle to go find that man raking his leaves in his yard and to explain why it was showing that he was 108 years old when he was only about 60.
Oh, I mean, you know.
All right. So here we are. We've got this concerted effort. He's got this concerted effort to crack down on voter fraud, which, by the way, is almost non-existent.
Yeah, especially in Kansas.
Okay?
Yeah.
And when you want to talk about non-citizens voting, less than 50 per state.
And then when they find out,
take that in again.
Charge.
That's less than 50 people per state.
Yeah.
250 people across the country. How in the heck is that going to sway any elections?
Well, you know what I'm really worried about, Chad? I'm worried
but,
about.
And again, but where my anger...
The mail clerks, because they work for the federal government, are going and dumping ballots out into the water and stuff. I mean,
they found one.
I love it. Hey, he could have got rid of like enough to sway an election, you know. But okay, this goes back to our original argument. Okay, not an argument, but where we agreed, which is believing things when you hear them without having critical thinking skills. And then
just do some research, for crying out, real research.
Well,
don't just Google it and call it good.
Well, and that's another thing is you know, something that I really appreciate about academia, that, you know, is a lot of people say, oh, you know, it's really liberal. Okay, there might be a majority of people that didn't necessarily agree with with me on political issues, right? Say I'm more conservative, okay? But this branding you versus us thing or whatever is just continuously getting us into problems. But, you know, it didn't change the fact that any professor that I ever had didn't accept like blogs, or if you want to call it that, from either side. It was like you have to have credible
Sure.
resources to be able to cite. I mean, that's all there is to it. If you didn't, they didn't care what they weren't like, oh, okay, you used Mother Jones, so you're good in an A because you used a very liberal, not always credible left-wing news source, but you if you identify with a conservative perspective, well then you can only use these. It's like, no, it taught people, individuals, at least this, regardless of your belief, to have critical thinking skills. And I always take it back to the fact,
something else.
Research skills.
And something else.
Hit me.
Multiple sources.
Yes. Oh yeah, I tell you what. In fact, when you get into the skinny on a lot of this stuff and you're doing deep research, it's almost, and I mean, and oftentimes you almost have to produce just as much cited sources, right, with your just with so much information. It's almost longer than the paper. It's like you are writing a paper or you're coming to a conclusion based upon research. You cannot go out here, write a whole paper of opinion, and then factor in, well, I'm going to use this source and this source.
Well,
and
let me give you an example.
Because those sources might not
Sure.
be actually saying what you want it to say. You can't.
Let me give you a very wonderful example. When I was a senior in high school, I wrote a paper for my social studies teacher, and it was, if I remember the title correctly, because we're going back about 35 years here. But if I remember remember the title correctly, it was practical peacemaking in a nuclear world, and it was very much a pacifistic manifesto. I just be honest, that's what it was. I mean, I went to a Mennonite high school, for crying out loud. And I turned in my rough draft, and my teacher, who also happened to be a cousin of mine, that's the way it works, right?
Going back now, that piece is going to get cut out. That's conflict of interest. There,
he looked right at me, and he goes, "Chad," he said, "You got a lot more work to do before you can turn this in. I asked you for a research paper, not a book report." Because I had discovered a book called New Testament Peacemaking by Richard M. McSorley, and he wrote 200 some pages about the St. Augustine's just war theory. And I, honestly, I fell in love with what I was reading. It was spectacular, right? And you know, then the point of my paper was to take that idea and put it into the context of possible nuclear war or dropping a bomb, right? Because, you know, it doesn't matter who the president is. He's walking around with football.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Don't care who he is. He's got the football. And so it's like, that can be kind of scary. And it's scary to think about if someone doesn't have some of those thought processes to prevent them from what could happen.
Yeah.
That was the point of the paper. And St. Augustine's just war theory kind of blows up, not to make a pun, kind of blows up the whole idea of a nuclear conflict.
Yeah.
Because there's no way that you can justify it under that theory. So I wrote a lot about it.
Yeah.
But I didn't write a lot about anybody else.
So he's like,
hey, this is a research paper. You need to go get more sources than this. And I'm just going, where am I going to get that? Well, I would suggest the
library.
I would suggest the following shelf of the University of Iowa Library. Okay, I'll go there.
Yeah, right.
Okay, and he said, but be prepared because you're going to pick up some stuff that is going to be exactly opposite of what you are the case that you're presenting.
That's right.
And he goes, and I would expect that you would analyze some of that. Yeah. Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah.
Multiple sources.
Yes.
It's critical to
anything I ever did when I was writing
and,
papers, and anybody can go back on any of it. I always looked at both sides.
Well, and
it was heavy on one that I had a conclusion with, but it was also had an alternative viewpoint to say, this is what such and such says, and this is why, and this is what the other says, and I'm inclined to believe this because of this is my conclusion. Source.
So I made a statement about my, I was like, cable news after 6 o'clock, right? Okay. So the reason that I'm qualified to make that statement is that up until just a couple years ago, really, I watched them all.
Yeah.
I didn't watch just one.
Yeah.
I watched them all. Okay? And that would mean that, on a given evening, I'm either channel surfing and only taking about 15 minutes of this schmuck before I go to 15 minutes of the other schmuck. All right.
The paid talking head. It's the truth. It's the truth.
Yeah, the guys that are all posing as me, I'm watching, 15 minutes of each of them, and then I'm going to bed. Other nights, I'm watching this dude, and I cannot believe what I'm hearing, and I'm just going to watch, and I'm just going to listen, because, if I'm going to deconstruct this at any time, I got to know what he was doing. They all operate the same way. Yeah. All of them do. Doesn't matter if they're liberal or conservative, which, by the way, we've lost the meaning of those words. We don't know what they mean anymore.
Yeah, they've changed. It's just like over in England, the left is right, the right is left.
We just absolutely do not know what they mean.
Yeah.
We don't.
Yeah.
I would venture to guess if you asked 100 Republicans, what does the word liberal mean? Well under half would have any idea what it really means. You would get a lot of opinion statements, but you would not get what it means.
Yeah.
Same for Democrats. Ask them what a conservative is. And quite honestly, those two political camps have been behaving so poorly and trying to represent each other and represent themselves that it doesn't shock me that nobody knows what those words mean.
Yeah.
He's just being straight, man.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with
you. So I was watching I watched them all. So when I'm talking after 6 o'clock, they're all a bunch of schmucks.
Yeah.
And they all operate the exact same way.
Fear and propaganda.
Thank you.
Fear and propaganda.
The number one thing they will do is tap into the inner fear of the people who are listening to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And some are more talented at it than others.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah. I don't disagree.
And straight up, for those of us that are paying attention and watching, there is one thing that everybody is always afraid of from the other side. Do you know what it is?
Shoot, Chad.
The president.
The person with the least amount of government-making authority.
Yes, but they're all afraid of the president.
Yeah.
And they want to blame the president for everything that is going wrong.
Yep.
Okay?
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't matter what it is. The president will get the blame.
Up to your guess.
Period.
Yeah. Okay. We are coming to the end of the program.
Sure.
And you noticed I said shoot 3 times throughout the program. We're on the talking about presidents. So man, now's a good time for me to give my last word, and I'll send it over to you for your last word. We all watched. I was watching national television when it happened, real time, and I'll tell you the truth of the matter is everybody witnessed an all-out assassination attempt on a we'll call him a former president. You can call him a president because I don't know
he
if they
is
ever
a former
lose
president.
the title.
No, he is a former president, and that has precedent.
Okay.
He is a former president.
So former president, all right. And the first thing that struck me, to be completely honest, is we have a lot of differing opinions in our communities, with our neighbors, with people in our towns, our cities, our counties, our states. And people, it's okay to believe strongly about what you believe. But the issue then comes in when you're willing to use violence of any kind, whether you're driven by anger of any kind, to be able to do harm to somebody else that you don't agree with. And I've said this in my own life, and I know this to be true. The root of it is fear. Fear gives birth to frustration. Frustration gives birth to anger. Anger gives birth to wrath, and wrath gives birth to death. And that is a true fact. Chad?
Well, if we're going out on the assassination attempt, our politics have been so caustic for so long. It was only a matter of time before it was going to reach that level. Now, when I say that, Gabby Gifford would love to have a word with anybody who says that this is all about the liberals. Straight up. President Obama's daughters sure didn't deserve to be shot at while they were sitting in the White House, now did they? And there's been assassination plots and attempts on about every single president over the course of the last 50 years. So it was only a matter of time until there was going to be someone who actually pull a trigger. And, by the way, I'm not so unconvinced that this wasn't truly a mental health issue, which is exactly what we hear after every school shooting. We have a problem. We are the only ones who can clean it up. And when in a world of politics, it starts with us demanding for better discourse. And I am talking to every party. I don't care if you're a Green, a Libertarian, Independent, Republican, Whig, Democrat, doesn't matter. Believe it or not, those are all operating in this country. Our civil discourse has to get cleaned up. Period.
Or we all lose.
Bingo.
All right, Chad. Well, that was Chad Fry, the Kansan guy's last word, and I already gave mine, so thanks for listening to the program, everybody. We'll catch you next week.